Mary. It's an honor to share some thoughts about the recent recognition given to a woman dubbed Queen Mary by many storytellers. She was born in Antigua and given the name of Mary Thomas. Yet the woman dubbed Queen Mary was a self-made activist born in the 19th century who was against the injustice and colonial rule by Denmark on the very beautiful Caribbean island of St. Croix. On Saturday, March 31st, 2018, 101 years after the United States bought those islands from Denmark, a European nation, Denmark gave recognition to Queen Mary as an important female figure by inaugurating its first public monument to a Black woman. Now, Queen Mary never wore a crown similar to this one at all. She never wore a crown. I brought it to show you that I won this crown in a senior pageant honoring senior ladies. But oh my, her title of queen is so very appropriate. So bear with me in my flashback to the 15th century when Christopher Columbus discovered the islands and claimed them for Spain in 1493. Columbus discovered the islands and named them after Saint Ursula and the 1,000 virgins. Siboney Indians and other different tribes of Indians were the inhabitants at that time. The following year saw many European nations attempt to settle the islands and use the Indians there as a labor force. As a result, the Indian tribes left the islands and fled to many other unexplored islands. In 1672, Denmark claimed 3 of the Caribbean islands, namely St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. The islands were then named the Danish West Indies, or the Dansk Vestindie. Denmark wanted the islands, especially St. Croix, for the exportation of sugar, rum, and molasses. They also expected to increase the economy and wealth of the islands through the slave trade. Denmark brought hundreds of thousands of Africans from their homeland to be enslaved throughout the Caribbean and the Americas through the triangular trade. Their reward? Gold, in return for human life and suffering. In essence, the economy of plantation life in St. Croix was dependent upon keeping the major population of the islands of the Africans of the islands, the Africans who could not speak their language or understand their culture, men, women, and children, numbering in the thousands, in perpetual enslavement from generation to generation. In 1848, because of several revolts by slaves, the governor of the islands, Peter von Scholten, freed the slaves on July 3rd, 1848, 124 years after Denmark claimed the islands. The economy of the island plantations was severely affected by the freed slaves found that very little had changed for them. They were free, but free to do what? They had rarely been treated as anything more than possessions, owned very little, and many were in poor health and aging. The plantation owners developed labor laws that affected the freed slaves in the most inhumane way. Extremely low wages, extremely poor housing that had to be paid for, little or no access to medication for self-care or family care, and a paid worker could only change their employment once a year. So, on the island of Antigua, an island of the British West Indies, slaves had been freed in 1831. Mary Thomas was born to former slaves in Antigua in 1848. At some point, she migrated to St. Croix and began to work. And Mary, along with many others, found living and working conditions intolerable. By 1878, other workers and Mary felt the state of affairs had to change. And Mary joined and led others in a full-fledged riot and attacked in areas of the town of Frederiksted. Their resistance to the armed police was strengthened by the many workers with fire torches and cane knives who held their ground, which ultimately resulted in the burning of half of the town of Frederiksted, as well as the burning and destruction of 50 plantations. Two other ladies, dubbed Queen Matilda and Queen Agnes, joined Mary and became a symbol of the rebellion known as Fireburn. Mary, it is said, styled herself as Captain Mary. Reportedly, it is stated that Mary felt that anyone who didn't follow the rebellion or join her should be decapitated. By the time the Danish authorities suppressed the rioters, about 100 workers were killed and 38 were sent to Copenhagen for execution, among whom was Queen Mary. However, her sentence was eventually changed to life imprisonment a few years after she was imprisoned in Copenhagen. Eventually, she was returned to St. Croix to serve out the rest of her sentence. Unfortunately, the Fireburn uprising didn't amount to any significant change for Black workers until on March 31st, 1917, the United States finalized their purchase of the Danish West Indies for $25 million in gold currency. These negotiations had been going on for more than 50 years. Queen Mary is also celebrated in a book entitled Fireburn, the screenplay. It is a story of passion and is based on the history of St. Croix, written by Angela Golden Bryan, in which she delineates the events of the uprising and pays tribute to Queen Mary as one of the indispensable figures. There is also a highway on St. Croix named after her, called the Queen Mary Highway. In honor of the challenges as well as the sacrifices of 3 powerful Black women during Fireburn, a statue named the 3 Queens of the Virgin Islands was erected and now stands in a 4-acre garden in Congan's Quarter in Blackbeard's Castle in St. Thomas. It was unveiled in 2005. Ultimately, we come to now, today, as Queen Mary is lauded as one of the rebellion's legendary figures and celebrated for her courage and strength against the oppressors. On March 31st, 2018, the public sculpture named I Am Queen Mary was unveiled in Copenhagen. It is a 23-foot tall statue of Queen Mary holding a torch and a cane knife while sitting on a throne. The statue sits in front of what was once a warehouse for Caribbean sugar and rum, just a little bit more than a mile from where Queen Mary had been jailed. The two artists responsible for this monument are Jeanette Ehlers of Denmark and Levon Bell of St. Croix. Finally, all of these tributes and praises are a testament to these important female figures whose revolutionary efforts challenged the status quo by their refusal to abide by established and accepted oppressive rule. Henrik Ohm, a research curator from Denmark's National Gallery of Art, in a statement has said, "It takes a monument like this to fight against the silence, neglect, repression, and hatred. Never before has a sculpture like this been erected on Danish soil. Now Denmark is offered a sculpture that addresses the past, but is also an artwork for the future." A commentary from a traveler to Copenhagen viewing the statue, viewed from a list of things to do in Copenhagen, the statement is that the statue is regal as it commands Queen Mary looking out into the canal of the country that she fought enslavement from. What do you think Queen Mary would think?